Hello again, it's your friendly neighborhood host, JT Wheatley, back for another episode of the History of Comics podcast. This time, within the first in a series of biographies on the forgotten black artists at the early golden age of comic books, with the first being Adolphe Barreaux Grippin, or Adolphe Leslie Barreaux, the invisible black pioneer of comic books. Throughout history, in times of racial oppression, many minorities have to disguise their identities in order to avoid then current prejudice, with comic books being no exception. Another example was Adolphe Barreaux Grippin, born to a mulatto mixed-race family in Charleston, South Carolina. He would later move to New York City, changing his name to Adolphe Leslie Barreaux and claiming to be white. As a result, he easily moved about high artistic society, but also inadvertently became the first black artist in comic books, even if he could or would never admit to it. Adolphe Leslie the Grippin Barreaux Jr. was born Adolphe Barreaux Grippin on January 9, 1899 in Charleston, South Carolina, preceded by his sister Helena, the children Adolphe Grippin Sr. and Georgiana Little. Their father, a wheelwright at the H. Stinkin Company of Charleston, died that following October 18 from a hemorrhagic typhoid fever, leaving their mother to raise two children on her own. She would take jobs as a seamstress, eventually working for the Louis Cohen dressmaking company, and even had to petition the court to take control of her husband's estate. Eventually, the Grippin family moved to 36 Alexander Street, as in 1909 their home was seized due to non-payment of taxes, leading the family to move several times again over the first 10 years of Adolphe's life. It wasn't long before these hardships took its toll on Georgiana, with her children moving in with her aunts Eugenia Grippin Steele and Mary Barreaux, their father's sisters. Despite these hardships, Barreaux would have finally recalled his childhood in Charleston, calling the city safe and enjoying its many events, from the Washington Day Parade to the Mets Band's concerts in the South Battery. However, events would transpire that would not only force Barreaux from Charleston, but his very identity. When he was 12 years old, Adolphe developed typhoid, the same disease that killed his father, and didn't fully recover until several years later. The family doctor advised them to move to a less humid climate, so at 15, Adolphe moved with his sister Helena and newly divorced aunt to New York City, which did allow him to fully recover from typhoid when he was 16. During the move, Grippin and his family left their mulatto heritage and claimed to be white. He even changed his name to Adolphe Leslie Barreaux. For the time, this made sense, as many light-skinned blacks did this to avoid racism while getting better social and job opportunities. On January of 1916, Barreaux graduated from Public School 44 in Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn, New York. He later went to the DeWitt Clinton High School that September, then the largest modern high school at the time, which once held the record for most students in attendance, many of whom would also be future comic book greats such as Will Eisner and Bill Finger. At DeWitt, Barreaux was an exceptional student, serving as editor-in-chief of the school paper and director of the Dramatics Club. On September 2nd of 1918, Barreaux registered for the draft at the age of 19, but was never conscripted, though his draft card describes him as 5'5", slender at 130 pounds, with dark hair and gray eyes. On June of 1919, Adolphe Barreaux graduated from DeWitt and was awarded the St. Gaudens Art Medal, named after Augustus St. Gaudens, one of America's great sculptors. Thanks to his excellent school record, he was accepted to Yale University. Before he went to college, Barreaux worked at the J. Walter Thompson Advertising Company as a staff artist. In September of 1919, Barreaux left New York City for New Haven, Connecticut to attend Yale, where he majored in fine arts and Elizabethan English, while also joining the fencing team and the Cosmopolitan Club, where he established connections that would help him later in his career. In addition, Barreaux worked part-time at a local drugstore making posters and advertisements before finding a better-paying job at the Hopkins Advertising Agency, where he served as art director during the summers. After completing his freshman year at Yale in July of 1920, Barreaux began his literary career when he wrote Hunch for the pulp magazine Breezy Stories, Volume 11, Number 4, which was published in February of 1921. His next sale would come after leaving college, when Barreaux wrote on The Trail of Dope for Mystery Magazine, Volume 7, Number 163, on September of 1924. That same year, Barreaux showed his more serious side when International Studio, a fine art magazine, published his essay, The Art of the Mayas, which was a subject he developed an interest in back in Yale. Barreaux would continue at Yale for 3 more years, but after the summer of 1922, he returned to New York City to seek out his fortune. In 1925, Barreaux opened the Leslie Barreaux Studio at 244 Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, using his name Adolphe Leslie the Grippin Barreaux. At Yale, he was known simply as Leslie. He soon got a partner in Lippert, changing the name of the studio to Barreaux Lippert Company with the intention of doing advertising, while also painting portraits for celebrities like the baritone singer William Ryder and Siegfried girl Marilyn Miller. Meanwhile, his personal art career began to grow as Barreau's illustrations were appearing in Collier's and Liberty magazine, while he was still selling the occasional stories to pulps like Snappy Stories, one of the infamous girly pulps that used covers of women in suggestive poses, while the interior art would feature full-on nudes. By the late 1990s, Barreaux was considered something of a celebrity, at a time when illustrators and cartoonists were treated as such, with his name frequenting the gossip columns, usually for attending a friend's wedding or a tennis match in the Catskills. Barreaux was even part of a public feud with the Brooklyn Daily Eagle columnist Rian James, supposedly over the treatment of women models by artists. It was reportedly started from Barreau's published comments that women were created for petting and pettiness, and no man doing creative work should marry unless as an expensive luxury, as these tales of wives being an artist's inspiration were just sentimental garbage. However, Barreaux would also attack the belief that female models were preyed upon by artists like himself, stating that they were safer in their studios than most other professions. It is not sure how much of this was true, as Barreaux had established a reputation for providing gossips and rumors to papers to keep his name in the public eye. A year earlier, Barreaux would even travel the country for a female model, which he chronicled in a syndicated column published in the small-town papers nationwide. Of significance, it is unlikely Barreaux ever tried to reach out to black female models, as he continued to segregate himself for his own black heritage. While working as an artist, Barreaux dabbled in acting, such as performing in The Dancing Mothers in 1925, which was among the many Broadway shows he claimed to have appeared in. In 1930, Barreaux was made the art director of the Green Roomers Revel, a private club for actors, and while once again making controversial comments about women, this time stating he preferred chorus girls as models, as not only did they pose better, but they provided great material for his stories. However, his career appeared to have stalled as he had to move back in with his aunts, Eugenia and Marie, with the Great Depression taking hold, and his illustration jobs were starting to dry up, and he even had to dissolve his most recent professional partnership with Raymond Thayer. One field Barreaux was able to move into was pulps, where his writing and artistic skills could be put to great use. In 1933, Barreaux created Flossie Flip, a comic strip about the misadventures of a saucy chorus girl for Harry Donenfeld, the future founder of DC Comics, Police Gazette, but it would end in November of 1934, where the paper went into receivership. Barreaux maintained a professional relationship with Donenfeld, serving as a creative art director in some of his other magazines and pulps, such as Snappy Stories, Pep, and Ginger. Barreau's personal life picked up when he married Vera Marie Zerpopolo, the daughter of Italian immigrants, on June 28th, converting to Catholicism to do so. Married at the Church of St. Mary on West 42nd Street, Barreaux would be a member of the church for life, along with becoming treasurer of the Catholic Laymen's Association. However, Barreaux would dissolve another professional partnership on November 9th, this time with Jalman. Back on the comics fronts, Barreaux started Sally the Sleuth for Donenfeld's Spicy Detective Stories pulp, an adult-themed comic strip about a female detective who had trouble keeping her clothes on. However, it was his next work that would put Barreaux into comic book history. One of the first comic books ever launched was New Fun from Malcolm Willier Nicholson, becoming the first under the company that would become DC. In addition, it was the first to present original stories over reprints of comic strips. For his part, Barreaux would do the Magic Crystal of History for New Fun number 3 in April of 1935, and as a result was the first black man to work in a comic book, even if he wouldn't or couldn't admit to it. The story was about two children who find a large glass crystal in a cave that allows them to transport through time. Not long after, Barreaux would later do The Enchanted Stone of Time, a color comic strip for the George Matthews Adams Syndicate, which happened to have the exact same plot as the Magic Crystal of History. While short-lived, the strip was reprinted in the comics number 6 through 9 in 1938 from Dale Publications. As for New Fun Comics, it will eventually be retitled More Fun Comics, running till 1947, and featured the debuts as classic comic book characters like the Dr. Occult, the Spectre, Dr. Fate, Green Arrow, Aquaman, and Superboy. By this time, Barreaux had solidified his relationship to Harry Donenfeld, who would fund his majestic studio in order to have a dedicated staff of artists for his publishing ventures, from pulps to comics. Among these were the comic strips for Donald's pulps, such as Six Gun Sandy for thrilling westerns, and Ace Jordan for thrilling adventures. Here, Barreaux did Olga Mesmer, the girl with the X-ray eyes, in 1937 for spicy detective stories, debuting a superpowered character a year before Superman appeared in Action Comics #1 on June of 1938. It was during this time in the late 1930s that Barreaux reconnected with his mother, Georgiana, who had also taken up a new identity in Josephine Barreaux, claiming to be from Poughkeepsie, New York, and like her son, now also claiming to be white, according to the 1940 census. Moving to New York City to be with her family, Georgiana would live to October 3rd of 1965, dying at the age of 92 in Brooklyn, New York. Before that, she would see the Barreaux family expand as Adolphus and Vera had their first son, Adolphe Leslie de Grippin Barreaux III, who was born on March 22nd of 1938, and then 2 years later, their second son, Theodore Eugene Charles Barreaux, was born. In 1939, Adolphe Barreaux did Patty O'Day in Wonder Comics and Wonderland Comics. Barreaux would later do Champion Comics with the stories The Champ and Dragon Thief, this time through Worf Publishing Company, which was founded by Worf Carahan, a pulp artist Barreaux once employed at Majestic. Harvey Comics would eventually take over Champion, changing its name to Champ Comics, though Barreaux and Majestic continued to provide the art until 1941. In 1940, Barreaux also took advantage of his theater background when he taught acting at the Barbizon Modeling and Acting School. In the late 1940s, Barreaux also illustrated several children's books, such as The Seven Round the Mountain, A Treasury of Humor for Boys and Girls, and The Treasury of Good Night Stories. Barreaux would later edit Private Detective Stories, which featured the return of his Sally the Sleuth comic, which debuted in February of 1949, though a bit tamer this time, i.e. Sally managed to keep her clothes on more. Published by Harry Donenfeld under his new venture, Trojan Magazine, Sally would appear for a year before graduating to color with a reprinting of her story on June of 1949 in Crime Smashers #1. Crime Smashers mostly consists of reprints from Donenfeld's pulp magazines, using color and toning down the art to appeal to new readers. Barreaux would edit Crime Smashers, Hollywood Detective, and Crime Mysteries, a companion title, till 1954, but with these series ending, it also marked the end of Majestic Studio and Barreau's comic book career. Barreaux would continue to write and edit, this time for Fawcett Publications, with their special interest book division under Whitestone, a subsidiary of the company. Here, Barreaux oversaw magazines like The Beauty and the Camera, Salon Photography, Bunny Yeager's Nudes, and Glamour in the Camera, which included Tasteful Nudes, along with also editing medical textbooks for Fawcett in 1962. In addition, Barreaux served as editor and occasional writer on the local New Jersey paper while writing for the Charleston, South Carolina paper News and Courier. It was during this that he claimed to have been born in New Jersey and having only visited Charleston recently despite having actually been born there, a further rejection of his roots. Barreaux would even claim to be friends with Senator Strom Thurmond and Congressman Rivers of South Carolina, two noted segregationists, and admiring the Confederate Museum of Charleston, an irony considering once again that Barreaux was black. Barreaux died on October 23rd of 1885 in New York City at the age of 86, having never revealed his black heritage, which would be discovered years later. In hindsight, it is easy to judge people like Barreaux, who claimed to be white to get ahead in life. However, looking at the racial prejudices of America at the time is entirely understandable, as he did what was best for himself and his family. It is always a dark part of any history when people must deny who they are to survive, let alone thrive, and the life of Adolphe Barreaux is a lesson against racism and bigotry, besides not being a talented artist who inadvertently made history in comic books. I would like to thank the chief source for this episode, Invisible Men, the trailblazing black artist of comic books by Ken Quattro, which features a great biography of Adolphus Grippin Barreaux and many other early black comic book artists, and will be a source for the many episodes to come. This is a must-read for any comic book fan.
Look, we gotta talk.
Yeah, Thunder Talk.
We're going all kinds of sideways with that sweet nerd junk.
Woke nerd junk.
It's topical.
Political.
Dare I say radical.
We've got all your latest news and reviews.
Hot music.
And a whole lot of comedy.
But it ain't for kids.
Definitely mature content.
So let's talk.
Let's talk Thunder Talk.
Thunder Talk is a proud member of the ESO network.
And now is February 29th, Leap Day, 2024. First off, time for the favorite comic of the week. Duke, number 3, by Joshua Williamson and Tom Riley, which continues the story that finds Duke imprisoned in a pit with his friend Clutch, all while Cobra comes hunting for him, dusting off another classic Cobra villain. Meanwhile, he has to turn to all people to Baroness to help him out. This is another great read. It does that Williamson helps revitalizing the G.I. Joe comic book universe, mixing the characters in new but still very familiar ways. You very much like that this Duke is going through PTSD. He wants everyone to believe that he saw a Transformer that we know as Starscream. Read the book. It's a cool way they're integrating the Energon universe in neat ways. And it's also cool to see that both Stalker and Rock and Roll, who originally arrested Duke and imprisoned him in the pit, are now calling Colonel Hawk out and like, hey, he shouldn't be here. What's going on here? And you see these guys might be realities pretty soon, which is good because things hit the fan real fast. Illustrated brilliantly by Tom Riley's art, which is great, action-packed, and nicely brutal. It is not a kid's book. It's the G.I. Joe book that the kids who watched the old cartoon show wish we growing up, and it works perfectly. It easily fits up next to Larry Hamill's great run on the classic series in the 1980s, which, by the way, is also going on, but I actually like this a little better right now. Just because, like I said, unlike that one, this one incorporates the Transformers and all the other cool stuff that Hasbro is having. And the Energon universe every book's been killing it, and this is no exception. So yeah, if you want to get in the Energon universe, pick up Duke number 3, great read. And with that, we conclude the archives for the Black History Month. And in keeping with the archives, if I'm going to be dusting off these old episodes that are no longer available, at least on my Apple subscription. They limit me to 100 episodes. They might be trying to tell me something. Who knows? So I'll be next month will be a Women History Month. So I'll be dusting off some episodes relating to that. You may have heard, may have not. Give them a good listen again. I listen to them too, and sometimes painful, sometimes not. I've seen the reviews where I speak too fast. I'm half Australian. I apologize. I am working on it, and but you're welcome to have your money back in exchange. But I'll keep doing it and try to get better because I like doing this. It's worst thing to do with your time than making a podcast, talking on your love of comic books and the great history about it. But with that, join me again next month for likely some archives about women in history, especially with comic books. And until then, go enjoy some good comic book and check out Duke number 3 because that's a great read.